Welcome everyone. Hi Martin.
Hi Felipe.
Hello.
Hello.
Today we have,
Hi.
I think it's our seventh meeting with different poets from all around the world, especially Europe this day.
Hey, Jörg is there.
Sorry?
Jörg is there.
Yeah.
I can see.
And we're very happy to talk with Joachim. Joachim has been in Chile. He was here in 2009. We all have a very good memories when he came here to an experimental literature conference we organized with Martin. And well, we just wanted to know how are you doing these days, how all the situation has affected you physically, mentally, artistically, and to see what's going on and also talk with all of you guys.
How are you, Felipe?
Sorry?
How are you, Felipe?
Fine, yeah. A lot of work in the university. I have to teach virtual classes, so it's a little difficult, but besides that, I'm okay. I'm probably like all of you, I used to work a lot in my house, so it's not such a big difference.
Hey, can you hear me? Because it's raining a lot here. So it's like there is a background noise all the way.
Okay, I'm hearing you okay.
Okay.
Me too.
I can see you, Jörg.
Jörg is black.
Julien.
Yeah.
Ah, Julien is black.
Yeah.
Jörg is there.
So how are you doing, Joachim? What can you tell us about this month?
About the weather.
No,
Where do we start? I don't know. I'm fine. I'm okay. It's been a ride because it's been like 3 months of the virus. So the language as a virus was very much alive during those last 3 months because everything is kind of viral. And I guess you are talking about this for the 7th time. And so it took me like 3 months of heavy thinking about all this, I should say. And that was interesting. And my health is better for like maybe it's better and better, but it's never completely gone. So this is the surprise thing, and I'm not alone into that, of course. It's a very weird thing. So we are all learning how to deal with it. And, from my experience now, I guess the effect of this kind of virus, like coronavirus, is pretty much linked to your emotional state. So your immune system is completely dependent of your emotional and, well, global emotional state, which was sometimes, you know, I go in rides and it just got me on this one. And it made me think a lot about, you know, how it works and how emotions, where are emotions and how they live and where do they come from and everything. So it's pure poetry in a way. Huh?
Yeah.
So that was a good start, you know, 3 months ago. Say, okay, usually I'm never ill. So I tried to understand why it was like this. And it took me a while. And I was absolutely interesting all the way. I don't regret anything, but I was heavy. And it's still heavy for a lot of people, I guess, because this is special. And what can I say? You know, as soon as you are saying something about this virus, you sound like a lunatic or, you know, complotist or whatever. inventing things, and it's true in a way. It depends. What do you want to believe? It's like we are all lost, actually, with many different ways of believing what's going on. So, from my perspective, maybe my belief is that this thing is not natural. But what is natural? You know, maybe it's man-made. Maybe you don't know. Maybe it's from a pangolin. But I don't believe in this Christmas pangolin thing, because that was so strange. That's the first thing I ever experimented in my life. This thing is strange, absolutely strange, and you never felt like this before. So each time I felt like this, it was with maybe a drug or a synthetic drug, and it looks like very synthetic to me because it looks coded, absolutely coded. And I love the code thing, of course, and you can talk about this thing. He's coding all the time, and I love code. I'm not a coder, but I think in terms of coding.
Yeah, it's like language in a way, you know, like
Yes. Language is a virus, and code, it's a code that brings things into reality and manifestation. So this is the core of what we call magic. You can call that the way you want, but as soon as you understand that each time you are producing sounds and language and creating kind of a complexity with this organization of sounds and organization of words and phonetic sounds and everything, you are creating realities. You are creating and helping things to manifest. That's what I think. And it's not only a belief. That's really what I think for many reasons. So this virus thing that we are all experiencing sounded so coded to me. I say, oh, wow, those guys, the people who made that are really good coders, because if you want to code something good, it's like when you make a movie, you know, when you make a montage or a collage or whatever, you don't want the people to look at it and say, oh, look how we made this thing cut with this, you know, you just want to get into the flow. So actually we think about a good movie when you don't think about the montage and the collage. And it's about this with this virus. It is so well done for me that you don't believe, and you can, you know, you had articles of people watching it closely say, no, this is not human-made, for many reasons, because it doesn't look like this. It looks purely natural in some way. Anyway, what is this? Man-made or something else is not important at this time. It's just what is it creating?
maybe human is too stupid to create something so intelligent like that. But I was with Joachim. I think we took at the same time that we have the virus in Strasbourg. Like we have the case number 0, you know, like it was someone who arrived from Wuhan in China, stayed around us, and then I don't know, a little group of people, Joachim and me, another musician, we have this different kind of effects, and of course I perceive like a synthetical drug, and like a kind of I feel like a kind of corona in my head, you know, like a spin of spots around. So in the Strasbourg train station, you know, like really space. But at the same time, it's like, you know, the theory, we talk a lot, Joachim, in the last emission about the panspermic theory, you know, that Anaxagoras philosopher theory, that the life came from everywhere. And then virus came from comets, and they spread around, you know, like, it's like language, you know, the Babylonians said, the Sumerian people say that language arrived from outer space, and another theory say that the Neanderthal, you know, they stop to be nomad and start to be sedentary and create the calendary, and the agriculture, and they start the war and all the problem, you know, because language arrives. Then maybe if, like the last time we talked about it, that how to recover the shape or the form of the structure of of the virus to create a new kind of poetry. What what do you think, Joachim, my friend?
A new kind of poetry with what?
With the format, with a new kind of shape of the virus, you know, dans quel sens on peut récupérer la structure formelle du virus pour essayer de nouvelles tentatives de poésie, tu vois? Est-ce que tu as eu idée de ça?
Mais quel virus? Le corona?
Tous.
Tous. I don't know how to answer that. It's a big question, you know. New forms of poetry. Well, everyone do what he wants to do. I don't know what is a new form, actually. It's a very deep subject.
What do you want to do now, you? What are you, which project are you in right now with all of that? What is your, I know you are in a lot of projects. You have a Ratum label, you have a different, you are a teacher in university, you make meditation, you have a kid, you have different projects and sound and music. But what is your...
Well, the main obsession for years is I'm trying to achieve a little book, which is, it will be the second one. And actually, the subject of it is something I'm interested for the last 30 years. It's the link between consciousness and matter, and what does the poetry have to do with all this? And actually, well, that's maybe this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You have all this, all my research for 30 years, bring me back to that. This is very strange, but this is the core of it, the origins of music and poetry. That's it. And all the manifestation, the complexity that can arise are coming from that. And what is that? This is just a word, this is a sound, and this is pure consciousness, this is reality manifesting, and so on and so on. And this is from India, this is Vedantic culture, and I'm not speaking Sanskrit, but I would like to. Maybe the next step will be that. But then the book I'm trying to write is about art and poetry, art and solipsism. And maybe it will be called something else, like art and consciousness, like big stuff, but it's only to talk about this, because when I do teachings and I have this image, like I was invited once for, it's just one room, there were several rooms where I write for many days, all kind of link all together, and I teach that in Strasbourg, this kind of thing. I think Felipe, you saw that in Paris, these old diagrams that I can develop and so on. It starts to be really messy because I have a lot. And then when I zoom and explain and everything, and the main thing is I stopped doing art for almost 10 years. I still do performances, but I stopped doing art the way people think about it, I guess. And nowadays, I think it's a huge regression, but I don't think it's relevant to think about it like as a regression. The art world could be called a regression one, actually, because everything seems linked to business. And if you're out of this business bubble, you're out in the blue. You don't know, you're poor, and it's more and more like this. So sometimes you have ideas, but you have a lot, and I'm a teacher for 20 years almost. You have a lot of young people who want to succeed, and they want to succeed in what? They don't want sometimes to succeed in life. They want to succeed into art world and get money, have a living, and so on. And to me, this is nothing to do with art, actually. You can make living with your art if you're lucky and if you want to work about it. But It's not a global thinking of what is art, where it's coming from and where it goes. So it's a deep thing. So well, je perds mes mots. I'm losing here a little bit.
Tu peux faire des sons, hein, aussi.
Hein?
Si tu perds tes mots, tu fais des sons.
No. So no, I stopped doing art 10 years ago, like in 2008, actually, when there was the first crisis, and it was linked from personal things, and I decided to take distance and make a deep researchers. So actually, I think I'm more into research. I don't feel myself as a researcher because I know people who are real researchers. They spend all their days making research. I took a lot of time doing this, but I tried to write that book about the link between consciousness, poetry, and solipsism, what you call solipsism, which is a bad word in philosophy. It's like the taboo one. What is solipsism? And the confusion generally is there. And Martin was there. In Strasbourg, we have a little colloquium, and we talk about this kind of things. And even some people who were a lot into this kind of experience were confused because of the French language is strange. Because in French we have a confusion between the self and the ego, because we say egoistic is working in English, but if you say that in English, you will use the word selfish. If you are selfish, it's a double meaning. That means you can think only about yourself, that means in an egoistic way, or you are thinking about yourself, which is more tricky, because what is the self is at the center of all psychology for almost a century, you know. What is the self? So what is the self? And this image there, you know, this kind of thing, it's the self. In the Vedantic tradition, the self is at the center of the manifestation of reality. So I try to think about the link between what is the self, what is the word, what is the sound, and what is reality, and what is the manifestation in the reality you are experiencing. So it's in my head, it's quite clear. Now the thing is to write it down, and I have a lot of things. So to answer your question, I'm still working on it. And I try not to make a philosophical book. I try to make a poetry book, because poetry is free form. You can lose yourself in poetry, and you don't want to be right or wrong. You don't want to be right, or maybe fear to be wrong. You just write what you want, you know, and what you feel with emotions, with your intellect and your limitations. And then it's this free form is absolutely interesting to me. This is why I love you all, guys, because you are all poets and you understand all this. You understand poetry is the core. And I still absolutely believe it. Poetry is the key. It's the core of all this. And I love it for intuitively since I was a kid. Say, okay, I feel like a poet. I don't know why. And more and more years passing, I understand that it's really at the center, because this word is poetry, pure poetry. And so I made this record last year. You could say it's music. It is music, but to me it's poetry too. And this is the cover, but you don't see it fully, but actually this is the first Caduceus. So you have this image at Le Louvre. It's a vase like this, 30 centimeters at Le Louvre in Paris. And this is very strange because you have everything there. You have this double helix with the, well, with the, what you can call those dogs or, you know, monsters, dragons, whatever. They are the guardians. They are the guardians of those 7 processor spots. And you have like actually the image of the Kundalini as we know it in India. But this is from Mesopotamia. So this is from Mesopotamia, and I'm trying to understand, and this is tricky because a lot of people are not fully aware of what happened, and you have different theories. But my point of view is like, okay, this is from Mesopotamia, and this is maybe the roots of poetry and music, like this, but in Mesopotamia, because you have this double helix, and with this centered fundamental tone, like in music. In music, you have this tonal modal system where you have this drone. The drone music is coming from India, and you have it everywhere on the planet. And the tone and the fundamental tone, you can link that to the first sound, which is the first articulation, maybe the first articulation of a word. So you have this A, U, M, the first articulation of the phoneme. So what is this thing doing in Mesopotamia? Is it coming from India, or is it coming from Mesopotamia, going to India, and then going to Greece, used by Hermes, and it is the roots of Hermetism, and all these things that leads the Occidental contemporary culture about occultism and magic is coming from that. But I'm not that much interested into occultism. I'm interested into poetry, like you. So I try to understand poetry and where is it coming from. And all my research brings me back to that. And I'm just fascinated with that. And it's for answering Martin, because you say, what are you doing? And I don't know what I am doing.
No, but
Trying to understand that every day, you know, and it's taking my life.
we are like trying to like go in rehearsing together, you know, in a way that is beautiful, because that group or in some poetry there's a kind of clan in poetry, or clan of group that we are like sharing our rehearsals together. That is for me is really powerful, you know, because I each time that I share with you, Joachim, I see we share different point of view, and with Felipe and with York, I don't know, with Hortense, and with like we like rehearsals in a group way, you know, like the scientists now they publish a review article, several names, not just I am the author of that thing, you know, there are several who are looking in a direction, and I think like you or Felipe and me, we are like that, I don't know, that link between, you call it occultism, but it's mysticism at the same time. It's like where the moment that the poem is not only describing something, it's doing something with, you know, when you say a bird is like, wow, burning from your mouth. Then it's like, you know, that is good, the difference between music and poetry, because in music, you have no difference between signifier and signifiant, you know, signifiant and signifié. Then the thing that you listen is the thing. It's not talking about other things, you know. And then when you tell me about your main goal now, and I saw your last 3 performances, they were completely amazing, you know. You put ourselves in like in the center of the black hole, and it becoming like a, you know, like a trou de verre, you know, like a white hole, and
A warm hole.
a wormhole. No, but
yes, like this, there, in the middle of it.
I think like when you're performing, you are really, indeed, you know, you're really inside idea of connecting things. And what do you feel when you're performing, Joachim?
Well, that's the strange thing for me. I can't explain, but when I do this, it was very tiring physically for years because I was not breathing enough. So after the performance, I was crushed. I got really ache and pain in my muscles and body for few days after that. So I started to breathe more and prepare, and actually to be relaxed is the key. But what's happening, I don't know. And I got some different um, insights. I met some people, and also, and I talk sometimes regularly. I met some psychics, you say in English, or medium, who gave me explanations that were very interesting. Actually, that helps me to understand that this kind of things are very intimate, actually, and it's all linked to also kind of belief system. That okay, what's happening, you know, are we connected to a kind of multidimensional stuff, are we linked to something multidimensional? And I do believe it, actually, because that was the experience. When I started, I felt like I was connecting like a rope, and it was like, where is coming that, where is it coming, that the rope? And I was just okay. It's just like grabbing something, and something happened. And each time it was like I was witnessing myself, something out of me. And that was a very strange thing, because you saw few performances, but I did a lot, you know, in 30 years, and some of them were like out of this world. Even me, I don't understand. Sometimes it works, sometimes it just doesn't work, and sometimes it works more than expected. It's something very, very strange. And it's kind of creepy, even for me. It's like, wow, where is it coming from? This amount of energy is like strange, and it's not noise, you know, it's not about noise. Actually, I know very well the noise scene internationally. And I can tell you, and I'm not against them, I love them for many reasons, but they really, really don't get it about poetry. Most of them are just brainwashed on that. They don't understand at all. It's another system. And it's not because we are doing intense and complexity of sounds that we are doing the same things. My roots are poetry. And when I do a performance, it's so close to noise events that most of the people think I'm doing noise. I'm just a noiser or whatever, and I'm a screamer and everything. And you have Japanese people who are doing the same things. And it sounds like this. It sounds the same. It sounds like, well, okay, let's destroy everything. And it's not. For me, from my roots, it's absolutely different. The link is poetry, 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 poetry. And what is voice, what is the sound, and what is connecting to another state of consciousness. And so if you are into another state of consciousness, what are we talking about? You know, it's all about this. What are we talking about? And this thing that what are we talking about is the thing I'm researching into for years. And I start to have this kind of global map of research and make the links of all this together. And that makes actually sense. And that brings me back to the image I show you and many, many other things. And it will be, as you saw, it will be like a 2 hours conference, at least, to get a little grasp of it, to understand the connection and the complexity of all this. And I'm perpetually excited by all this, because it's like I'm discovering, like a kid, many, many things. And the links between quantum physics and consciousness and poetry and music and art and drugs, altered states of consciousness. And now the new thing is DMT, and DMT seems very, very fashion nowadays as ayahuasca, but everything is connected. You can find extremely interesting thing in this world also, and you will find very interesting things in other part of what I said. The connection between all those fields are so subtle, and that helped me to realize that, okay, we are all into an experience of life. So what is happening during a performance is like
what do you feel?
well, once a medium told me when I perform, it's like there is two openings there. I mean, like this here, people watch, and something else above or under, I don't know, it opens in many ways. So it's like I'm a link, and it's not me. It's like there is a link that is happening between one field and another. What is the nature of that first field? I think we know it's reality as we know it. And the other field is the subtle one that we don't know about it. We feel it, some people can name it, and you have not only one, and it's something like heavy, intense, and you can grasp it sometimes if you take drugs or ayahuasca or what do you want. You will connect to multidimensional stuff. And what is multidimensional is just a simple thing. As soon as you think about space and time, when you take this kind of DMT thing and you connect to another state where space and time are exploded and you understand them globally, then you understand that the reality as we know it and the way we are experiencing it is a pure limitation. So that means we have something to do on this state, and we are all doing it. We are all like not slaves. We have to work here. We don't have a choice. Or maybe you just blew your head and you think you can get out. That's another belief system. But if you accept this, okay, you can still connect and bring informations and understand things. And that is a creative process. That is a creative process because that changed few things here in your experience of life. And what I experienced and what I personally understood is like, if you connect a little bit, then you see something manifesting in your reality. And this is so deep, this is so precise. You can call it random, hazard, or whatever. I don't believe into all that. Yes, you can call it like this. Life is strange, full of, synchronicities and hazard. I call that purely manifestations of life. You connect to something, you think about your grandmother and she's calling you. This is a manifestation of a collaborative informational process. You connect there, you think about something. This is a creativity process and you have a feedback of it. Okay, this is just a phone call, but what if you have something deeper and you can watch what's happening in your street when you walk outside, and you will see things. You will see things that are linked to your belief system. So to me, this is poetry. That's all I want to say. I can speak hours about this. This is where I mean. This is my research. I worked into that a lot. I try to understand and I have fun because for years I was the lunatic, okay, the guy that is a little bit freaked out. But if you start to take time to study all these links between all those worlds, you will see the map is there. The map is there, and you can understand how it works actually. And this is the beauty of it. And the incredible beauty of it is that poetry is at the core what we call poetry. And this is why, you know, when I teach, I try to explain something very simple. It's like there is this red line between what you call artificial intelligence and, well, shamanism before the religions, you know, the global manifestation of consciousness before the religions were shamanism everywhere. And the connection between shamanism and artificial intelligence is very close. You can speak about it. It's about consciousness at the end. So what is happening with artificial intelligence? Well, good luck to explain that, because I don't have the you know, the clue to explain that at the end. But there is some kind of link, because it's a manifestation at the end, because we will understand that maybe later on. We'll see, wow, artificial intelligence, I was against that for years. And now I'm not afraid about it. I'm not for it. I'm not against it. I'm just watching it happening. And this is absolutely fascinating, because it talks about consciousness. And this level of consciousness is rising. And we don't have the single clue to fully understand it. And when you take DMT drugs, and it's happening everywhere on this planet, people think like me in many different areas of life. You know, not into poetry. People are not into poetry. They start to understand. Oof, this is complex. And Terence McKenna talked about this like 30 years ago. And now, okay, we start to understand the complexity of all this.
Joachim, I think, you know, that, and I saw several performances of you, like, since I was arriving in Paris, like 20 years ago. I saw one wonderful performance of you, like, I think you were one of the best performers in the world, and you transmit when you're in action, in poetry action, you have that kind of reception of like a wonderful and powerful, strange energy, and then I think we cannot not understand with the virus language that kind of thing that happens and that. But for me, it's like it's operate, and it's more powerful than any drug. You know, to go to a concert of you or a performance of you, because I you know, for me, it's like I told you about the day the Guillaume de Machaut in the Middle Age. He has the same, you know, he was exploring, you know, that kind of composition, at the same time performing voice and composition and music and poetry. And I always feel you like a pioneer of that, you know, like I don't know, but I imagine that book that you talked about it like a kind of new kind of composition of sound, because in sound you are like in your presence, in physical presence, in your poetry, you transmit something really like make you travel more than the MT or all that kind of drugs, you know, than then.
Well, actually, I don't believe that we need drugs. We don't need to swallow them or smoke them. It helps. It helps for people maybe who never felt it like naturally. It can bring back a little bit of it, but you have receptors for iboga, for DMT, for even psilocybin. You have receptors in your brain for THC. So what's happening, you know? So you have to take the drugs, or maybe, you know, you are born and your brain is ready for that to happen. So that means you can probably create all those molecules by yourself. And this is the thing with DMT. It's not a common drug. It's a consciousness state. That means if you take DMT, you are bringing to a state of consciousness where space, time, and all kind of things are more clear, definitely. And it's like, to me, it's like a natural process. That means the human consciousness can go up to that point. So you can help your experience in life by taking those kind of drugs. But I think you can have them with sex, ecstasis in sex. You can have it with music, when you listen to music, meditation, and you can have it absolutely when you perform poetry, when you read, and when you do voice and poetry, free poetry with your voice, the voice and the attitude and the breath and the connection to these states bring you to a huge DMT, production, and you can achieve a stronger state of consciousness. I truly believe that from my heart, because this is what I experienced before trying once DMT, and I felt, okay, I don't need that, and I don't need LSD. I tried a single time. Each time I discovered that, okay, we don't need it, because if you take too much, you want to experience it again and again and again and again, and then each time you have to come back. And this is the joke of it. Each time you have to come back here. So, okay, the work is there. It's not, you can go and go and go, but you come back. So what is the lesson there? And it's a strong one, because what is happening there? And if we have to come back, we maybe not like it a lot, but we still have to do it. So I try to enjoy life as much as possible, every aspect of life. And this is poetry to me, absolutely. And so performing with voice, this is why the musical world don't understand this. They want to record voice and make it a musical tool like the others. And I say, no, you lose yourself. And the musicians lose themselves with this, because they lose the complete central process of it. That if you read, if you use your voice to express yourself in one way or another, you are creating something. And you can call it a virus. You can call it the way you want. And virus is a good thing, but virus is the negativity aspect of the virus is a little bit boring, because the virus can be perceived as destructive, but it's also this reproduction of thing, and the way it's transforming and things. And after 3 months of coronavirus, I felt like, wow, this is absolutely, it transformed me. It was a kind of mutation in my life. And this is why you have the records there. My label is Erratum Musical, because Erratum is like bringing us to the question of what is an error? What is an erratum? And life is full of errors. Life is evolving and mutating when you have an error in duplication. Life is duplicating all the time. And when you have an error, you have a mutation. So you have a little difference. And this is life. This is purely life, because otherwise it will be completely mechanical. It will be the same thing everywhere. So your body will be the same, and we will be like robots, This is not. We are not robots. We are humans full of errors. So Erratum Musical is the name for that. That means, let's open to the error system, huh? And voice is full of it.
And then I talked it before, like with you and with Felipe, the connection that you have in your poetry with medieval poetry, like middle-aged poetry, like the troubadours, because you play viola da gamba and different instruments, and you the last recording, one of the last one was with that. What instrument was with that you played?
For this record, it's a mechanical hurdy-gurdy. So it's like en français, in French, the word is boîte à bourdon, a drone box. Yeah. But the drone thing was used as a metaphor for poetry. So people think I'm doing a drone record, and they are right. But at the same time, I use that image to show, and I try to explain that to people like you who wants to discuss a little bit, that it's poetry.
Joaquin, what is your connection with medieval poetry, with Guillaume de Machaut, with troubadour poetry, with all kind of?
Well, the connection is simple because I think we all feel it because we are loners. Most of the poets I know are people quite alone, and they like to be alone, and they like to performing regularly alone, and sometimes with people. But most of the time, writers or poets are people who are a little bit loners. They like to be alone and write and think and read. And I guess the medieval poets were not the first, of course, but they were linking things. They were linking poetry with music and with this loner aspect of wandering and people who are moving from one place to another. And this is like the performer nowadays. We are doing the same thing actually, but not in the Middle Age. And I was fascinated for many, many years about the complexity of the situation in the south of France, also with the medieval poets. I say, what really happened there with the courtly love, amour courtois, and I guess I was young and fascinated by this power given, to an external love. At first, it's like a fascination for a lover. Could be a woman, could be a man. Doesn't matter. But it's like a fully given power to someone else. And this is how I was when I was very young, because I was in love all the time, and I gave my heart like very romantically love, and I crushed myself heavily with this, because if you believe that means you are not centered, and that means you give all your center to someone else. So that was the core also in the courtly love process, and I tried to understand for years where was this courtly love and this way of thinking emotionally and spiritually was coming from. And I discovered it's complex, and it's linked to this kind of image is not far, because the Kabbalah from the Jewish Kabbalah was born in the south of France at the 13th century, for example. That means, wow, what happened? Everybody knew each other at that time, right? And there were not much humans in the south of France, in Occitania. So the complexity with the Muslim aspect, the Sufism, the Jewish Kabbalah, who is a combination of many different things, the poetry thing, the music thing, and the situation with the wandering poets, who were probably connecting a lot of all those informations together. And they were like passengers, bringing life to many things. And I still think it's the same process nowadays with poets, because poets are connecting a lot of things together before people understand. So this is our duty, actually. This is where it's not even a duty. We are just doing it naturally. And I truly think that. I truly think that the real poets are connecting strongly concepts together. And before people understand this, like on a global scale. So this is why we call avant-garde, and I always like to explain that, well, hello, it's Julien Blaine who told me that first. He told me, okay, all the avant-gardes were created by poets. And this simple thing, wow, made me think a lot. I was like, he's absolutely right. It's crazy, it's amazing. All the avant-garde we know, and I'm a teacher in an art school, so okay, futurism is part of the art world, surrealism, and so on and so on and so on. And everybody like this, they forget, and they maybe don't fully realize that all those avant-gardes were created by poets.
But at the same
when
time,
when you understand that, okay, you connect to poetry and you go back to middle age and then you go back to straight, other periods of life. And this is why actually I'm 4,000 years beyond that with the Mesopotamians, and I try to understand who were the poets there, who were the poets who invented that. Really, it was like maybe not poets. They were like I don't know. What would be the name for people doing this kind of things, bringing forces together? Because when you have those dragons supporting the process of life, because this is a fertility process, this vase, it was something to pour elixir in Mesopotamia. This is the same thing, fertility, 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 fertility all the way. And this is why poets are interesting, because it's a fertility process all the way. We are here to fertiliser la vie. I think it's...
because Hortense Gauthier was not here the last time, and like bringing and jumping from that word of fertility, fertility, male or female, or in a way, like to bring some, or not so for virus or bacteria, it's different a kind of process, but for humans. I don't know what, Hortense, it's a pleasure to have you here, and you want to say something to us?
Yeah, my English is very bad, so I can just answer to this question about fertility. It's very strange because I just live one specific experience about my own fertility. So I speak as a woman, or as somebody who has genital organ, feminine sex. So I don't know. Joachim say a lot of very, very interesting things that I feel very close to him about this question of process of creation, and what the deep energy that move ourselves. And I think about the question of poetry. Yes, it's we can link this poetry with fertility, but for me it's a question of how we can live on this earth, on this planet Earth, as a place where we can do something that not destroy yourself and destroy everybody. So I realized that poetry it's only thing, the only way of knowledge I found. I think it's a process like alchemy, because it's a way of knowledge of ourselves and of everybody. And we can. I'm very shared between. I'm very split sometimes between two way of research. It's how we can know something about life and where we are here on Earth. What is the way, with body, with feeling, or with mental spirit? And I think we are very, the Occidental culture has split ourselves, and I'm so tired with English. Sorry, but I think we have to repair, to fix this disjunction between our spirit and our body. And yes, different sort of poetry and music and art is the way to you know the technique, the Japanese technique of kitsungi.
Oh, well,
And I think art is a way to doing that, and to don't be separate. And the separation and the deep huge you have sometimes with earth and with and with others. And I think about this question of virus, and I don't know, Joachim, you are sick, and I don't know if we can. I think we can speak about with another word. Perhaps you are not sick with this virus, you know. You are just transform yourself, and this virus can teach us to accept other things, stranger things, you know. Strange, they come from, we don't know, perhaps it's a laboratory, or perhaps it's nature, but the laboratory, it's human laboratory that perhaps creates this virus. So for me, it's nature. There is no separation between technology and nature, you know. And it's the earth, it's the population on earth that create this virus. And it's perhaps it's like the snake, the Ouroboros, you know, the solipsism you want to understand, Joachim, and that there is no, for me, there is no first origin. All is create other thing on a process, and perhaps we will never know where come from life and where come from death and where come from illness, etc. We all produce the things that they are in us, and if on Earth now there is a big virus, a big pandemic, there is another in the history. It's not new. It's just what is it's interesting. It's the way we are living that, and it's a big revelation about the function, about how function our world, you know. So, and when you have a virus or when you have an illness, when you are sick, you can also understand how your body functions. And for me, it's the same thing with the virus, you know. So
and also in that way, you can take, you know, the virus could be kill an individual, but the collective maybe make it better in a way, you know, because
yeah,
we like the planet like 2 months, like taking piece of like the human activity, and you know that if we like consider ourselves like a collective and not
yeah,
only individual way, I think that it's the learning of that kind of virus, and that is
yeah.
a lot I love in some poetry, because it's not in another kind of poetry. It's like that kind of community, you know, like now we are like a little group of freaks, like talking about poetry and virus and everything. I don't know. What do you think, York? I will take for a wine, and I 10 seconds. Or maybe you want to answer to Hortense. I don't know.
Martin, he leave. Oh,
Jorg, do you want to comment something around all this? It's not an obligation, of course.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear.
I can't. Do you hear, Jörg?
No.
Now.
No, okay.
Now that's good.
Ah. What did I want to say? No, it's just a little bit related to what Don said. It's something I was thinking for a long time is because the virus is maybe a small crisis compared to the one global climate crisis we still face. And I was thinking about how to continue as a society and what should be important in a society, because obviously we have to live off something, we have to earn money or somehow exchange ideas and flows. And I think one of the things that should be, or that might be more important in the future, is actually the things we do, because we do stuff that doesn't need a lot of resources, a lot of energy. What we create is just knowledge and ideas and fantasies. And that's something that has always been important, but is maybe even more important if we want to solve the crisis, but also if we want to kind of improve our way of thinking. And in the last 50 years, we did this with making goods, creating cell phones, computers, cars, clothing, and all this stuff that maybe we don't need that much. But what we need more and more and more is ideas, poetry, music, whatever. And maybe that will be very important. And the other thing is what Antoine said about the body and the mind is my own experience I had in the last 2 years. I started doing martial arts, and this is kind of kind of the union of, it's not by accident called arts also, because it's something that you learn for your body, but also you learn it in your mind, and it changes your mind. And now I experience it that I have almost for 3 months I didn't go to martial arts course because it was not possible. And I really feel the lack of it, because I was so used to going there 2 times a week, and it changed my mind. And I have to continue that, because it was so important in the last 2 years, and I need to go on and go on, because it changed my life a lot. And I think those are the two things, like arts and working on the body-mind relationship. That's, for me, it was very important, and is still important, and might be important on a global scale, I guess. And also, I don't know, finding other things we can even think of, maybe do some new forms that are not arts, that are not sports, not martial arts, but something new that will just appear because it's necessary that humanity finds something that is not selling a product. It's not buying, selling things, but just improving or changing life by, I don't know, by just working together or exchanging ideas, exchanging, I don't know, how to work with your bodies and all this stuff.
So you're still doing martial arts?
Yes, but not now, because it's not possible, but I hope it will continue.
What kind of?
Jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu.
Oh,
I learned the other day in jiu-jitsu, when you're shooting, you have to open your hands to go the weight all over your body, not only in one point, like when you fall down. And that is really important. I also make aikido and some things, and then when you are connected, that you're preparing yourself, because I think write a poem or make a poetry is not so difficult. The difficulty is to put you in the state, like put you in trance in a way, and that is like that kind of martial art or things like that. It put you, or the condition. I go with Joachim the other day. He performed in the catacombs in Paris. It was an amazing night, and I don't know. I think each one of us have a different way to prepare to that kind of arriving the poetry in the stage. I don't know, Thomas. What do you think, Thomas?
For me, I find it really interesting that it seems like at at the moment, one of us starts talking and forming his own thoughts while talking about how one sees poetry. It seems like there will sooner or later, each time, element of nearly religious or spirituality element arrive, and at the same part, I I want to avoid those things because I don't want to stand there and say I'm religious, but this comes out of itself during the act. And the point is, I've uh, liked Joachim's talk before very much, and um, the picture you showed us with the arm in the middle, with the sign, and you were speaking about
This
the
one?
origins and sorry, and because also you told us that you're a teacher, and so I had the imagination what is when teaching or the act of movement in a way of teaching and giving something with the consciousness of giving, but not expect something for it. That inside of this lies power, which what also makes a circle to what Jörg was speaking, that we all feel that this virus, coronavirus times and so made a difference, another experience, like pushed into something new inside, that this pulled out the view on that it is more needed than ever to how silly it sounds, to make more together. And I mean, when you're doing sound poetry or sound poetry performances or all this poet things, then you're outside of this normal mechanics, and maybe also that this is also a little bit coquette, and but it is what it is. And if you're outside from the beginning, like you said, like you come to the vernissage or to the concert or to the performance the first times, and you from the beginning you are some kind of from the ground lifted freak in the eyes of the other, and also in the context of the normal literature surroundings. um, then you do this with the conscious of being there and not being in some kind of inside of where something like the money is, per example, and there must be, it seems, some unspeakable value in not being a part of this from the beginning. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. And the second thing, it seems, we are all connected when we are pushed to talk is the psychology and teaching and thing in a way, because I'm also I worked in the past a lot with mental handicapped people for getting a small part for the rent as a fixum and something like that. And you also, Martin, do something, and many people I know doing some social job stuff, and also on this railway into some, not direction, but area. And it's really funny because I don't like religion and esoteric and all this so
Why,
much in the
why
art.
not? Why not? Like, it's not, it's not against, I think like you have that kind of link with that kind of wholeness, of that kind of totally or emptiness, or kind of massive connection that Joachim or you make in your poetry. Also in that kind of experience when you are, I don't know, connected to some perception. The other day we talked with our friends from Argentina, that poets, they have construction to to call to some spirits, in a way, and then they make alchemy also to call spirits from the ground, and make invocation to call spirits from the head. I don't know. I think that poetry in that way is the best way to don't have fear about that.
True.
Don't fear. Don't have
I don't fear. Yeah.
about all kind of experience, religious, satanical, sexual, drugs. I don't know. It's like poetry. At least for me, it's like a kind of Ariadna feel. I don't know how we say.
Connexion est très mauvaise.
Hein? Julien, c'est à toi.
Sorry, I have lost my connection.
But
So,
your turn.
my turn to. I've just lost the connection, so I haven't heard what you're talking about. Sorry.
What do you think about to lost connection?
Lost connection with the world going around, like.
No, because you work in connection. You're putting your website. You collect that family. That little. I don't know. Family is a bad word, but that kind of group, society. I feel that when like some a long time ago, I don't believe, and I don't want that kind of some poet's name. But now I feel more and more like kind of little, like a group, like Neanderthal, transhuman, nomad group, who is like living and learning from virus in a way, because we are learning from that. I don't know, Joachim. Everyone say that bring us in a difficult moment, but better or different. It changes. It's like a hard rock kind from I don't know where. I think humans, we are so stupid to make that. I think it's more intelligent than human. But what I don't know what.
But we have lost the audience during this time. That was the problem. We can create, but we haven't the link with the audience while we are reading. And Joachim was talking about the fact that he was in a kind of other consciousness, another state of consciousness, and Thomas too. And
I'm not the only one, actually. During the performance, it's happening, and it's a gathering, I should say. The people who are there are not here by pure hazard. I could say that, So it's not like I'm alone or something. It's just something happening, and sometimes you have few audience, sometimes you have lots, and you don't know about this. You never know. But I understand. We could lose audience in the process. We could be fully alone, actually, for real. And I guess you can all agree that the poetry world is like shrinking. She disappeared, you know. The poetry world is like shrinking. I guess we are all into that for many years. And it's like, what is happening? Like the sound poetry world we all love is like, okay, getting smaller and smaller. And now we are between ourselves doing this online to kind of, I don't know, it's not about securing something, but maybe we want to share something about above all, you know, like, and you are doing this on the internet, like forever, for the future artificial intelligence to swallow what we are saying. Non, mais Julien, excuse-moi, je rebondissais sur le manque d'audience ou le fait qu'on maybe we can lose audience. So, are you still there? What were you thinking about this?
I think it's different for it's difficult to speak English with you. It's
French and
it's a different way to perform when you have a very tight text and you have to follow it, or when you create something more with more spontaneous, like you improvise. I don't, so I can stop my, I have to fix my text every time. I can't lose my
your religion.
Sorry, I lost it. I have to be focused on my text and focus on the audience to work with this link. And I can go to another state of conscious, but I understand it, because sometimes in a long text I have some improvisation and I understand what you're talking about, but that's the shortest time than you. And I have not the link like you, Joe, with a kind of spirituality. I'm not linked to the origins. You are always searching for all origins of poetry or something like that. That's not one of my points. But we have linked together with medieval poetry. I agree with this point. I have a lot of influence by the medieval poets. Is there anyone?
But actually, what you said, and also Thomas, it's not that I'm not that close to esoteric or whatever. And well, for my family, they were all into different things, like Christians, Buddhists, Hinduist, and whatever. And I grew up a little bit in Africa. So actually, it's like I had the choice. I could be anything in a way. Mm-hmm. So it kind of freed me to be Buddhist or Hinduist or Christian or even being religious. So I felt like, okay, I'm free to think with all this. And I just make some studies freely, say, okay, let's see how it goes and where it's coming from and the link between that or that. And then I just understood that it's basically to study this is to understand what we are at the present time, because we are the combination of unconscious is full of that. And this is what I saw, everything that we use also in music, poetry, art, whatever, is full of theology and symbolism and all kind of very deep things that we don't know about. And just discovering this, how there is this thing hidden under this rock, heavy stuff. Okay, and that and that and that. And this is why I was saying about, if we want to understand artificial intelligence, that means going into the future. We have to go into the past to be fully in the present. This is the paradox thing, you know. So actually, I don't feel myself like purely religious or something. It's just I love to study a lot of things, and the things I discovered astonish me every day. So it's like a revolution every 6 months. It's like my brain is exploded many times. I say, wow, fuck, it's heavy, you know, and just discover new things. And this is why we are here. And I still believe, okay, we are here because we feel poetry is something interesting. And if
there was something interesting in the part where you're talking about time and space and drugs and what your experience is with that. And in the future book, I've worked a lot on Einstein and the theory of relativity, etc. And it's interesting to see that what you're talking by experience with drugs is very close to what Einstein had explained with the theory of relativity, and what time is not existing, and space and time are the same things. And it's very close to what you are experiencing.
Yeah, for real.
And perhaps with the virus, we can just realize that the frontier between spirituality and the science is very thin, because I think we live in now in a time when where science it's more and more controversial, you know, and when we are faced to a scientific problem, this virus, but when we see all this kind of projection of imagination we have about that, it's so crazy for me. The difference between what is true and what is false, and it's very, very complicated now. And I think the belief in the true on science, on the vérité de la science, you know, it's fall down for me.
But the science is not truth. The science is the doubt.
Yeah, and
the principle,
another kind of religion.
The first things when the science in the 18th century have grown up and became what it became, it's when we think about the doubt. We think ce qu'on appelle le doute scientifique. En fait, au XVIIIe siècle, sous les Lumières, c'est ça qui a fait lancer les protocoles et qui a fait que la science a avancé. It's the fact that we've doubt and we have searched to on a cherché à infirmer, je ne sais pas comment dire en anglais, not to confirm a fact, but to infirm it, to search the wrong things in it. And at this moment, at this point, it was Galilei and others.
Kepler.
Science become something interesting. So it's not the truth. Science is not the truth. Science is to search what is false.
Science fiction. Science is a fiction in a way, you know, like, and we believe in science now what like we used to believe in religion before, you know, that it's truth. It's like, you know, and with the last Lancet review, the English review of biology, is published something on hydroxychloroquine, I don't know, was completely false. It's like completely fake, you know, and then science reveals in that moment of virus that is a kind of fiction, and science, it becomes more.
Yes, but the Lancet.
Thank you to science fiction in a way.
Reality.
The Lancet.
Lancet.
The Lancet have told that what they have published have some problems. And here is the science. It's the fact to say what we have published is partially wrong. If they say we are true, it's the truth. That's not science. The science is
science
make mistake.
The position of religion, you know, we have the truth. You know, we the science, we can receive the truth. And anyway, I think Felipe has to go to another.
I have to go to another meeting, but I will leave it this as long as you like. But I just like to say is that I found very interesting that one of the concepts we most repeat all this time is the idea of linking, and linking between spaces, between times, between disciplines, etc. But I would like to ask you also, Joachim, how do you see this, confronting it with the mystical experience, which is sometimes takes us out of our body. It becomes a break, a cut with our history. Like, how do you see this this combination of breaks and links, which can be happening all time in a performance, in a ritual, in a mystical experience?
I'm not sure to fully understand the question because you have many questions underlying.
Yeah.
but I try to, well, actually, if I try to resume the question, it's about what is happening with the mystical experience, possibly, and also the links and poetry. I'm not, can you try to formulate it?
Oh, the idea is that it's just this concept of linking that we have been talking, but there are also breaks, there are cuts, there are wounds, there are, so how do you see this this relation, this?
Well, I understand for the links, I have one word, and I wanted to say it before and I forgot about it, but during the performance, from my perspective and aspect, it's clearly about channeling, which is a strange word that happening in USA during the 60s, and about, you know, mediumistic translation of an experience. I mean, channeling between one field and another. So I feel like a canal in France, en français, canal, canalization. That means you make like a canalization. So about the breaks, I'm not sure, but because it brings back to do we have a body, and do we have a kind of mind or spirit, and can we get out of the body? And this is actually the core of everything that I said, because if you take DMT, or if you go back to Vedanta's teaching in India 3,000 years ago, that will say the same thing actually. And artificial intelligence for whatsoever is not so far. But that means you experience non-dual aspect of life. That means no separation between consciousness and the reality. So in that aspect, there is no limitation with the body, because that's a dualistic aspect of a belief. Like there is a body, and maybe there will be a spirit inside that body, and that's probably a mistake, because it's not like there is a spirit in a body. It's just the body is part of the experience, but maybe we are more than our body. We are much more than this body. So this brings back to theory in science also, multidimensional, or, you know, pluriverse and multiverse. That means, okay, we are experiencing one body, and I can see other bodies. But where is the consciousness? That's the question. So, but in the poetry thing and performing, the breaks, if you take DMT, you will get out of your body. Actually, you will leave that body, and you will see, okay, I'm not dead, and you can move.
I try to, Joachim, just because you asked me before what what is the rehearsal that Felipe is making now? And I would love that, Felipe, like, can you talk to us with rehearsal about, because you're really like a rehearsal guy of poetry and mystic and sound and music. And I don't know if you can explain better than me to Joachim, what is your rehearsal now about
Yes, that's good. The question is yours now.
Oh,
the
yeah.
question you just asked.
No, the thing that relates with what I'm trying to reflect these days and years, because as you already said, in my case also, and I think for everyone, we are dealing with questions for like 10 years, 20 years, at least I feel that way, from different points of view, etc. But my point is that, we've talked a lot about it. I love different mystic traditions. I love trying to learn what you can get from all those traditions. But the thing is that I found very hard to try to replicate the same feeling, the same kind of experience nowadays when we are living in a world that is so different. We live in a world that is focused on specialization, in the, in separating things, in limits, in borders. And of course, one of the borders that we can't cross is like the metaphysical border. I mean, we try to, but in a general consciousness, we're not living in that same way that people 2,000 years ago felt more like a connection with the gods or the spirits or the nature, the earth, etc. So my point is always I like trying to get there, but I found it that it's complex experience. It's kind of impossible in a way. But in this case, I mean for me, of course. Like I'm too how do they say? Like I don't have too much trust in my capacity to get there or the capacity of others. So that is what I'm thinking. Is it possible to have like a mystical experience using whatever whatever thing you want, a drug, you can, I don't know, spend 10 days without talking, whatever kind of procedures you have. But is it possible or not? That's what I'm always going around.
Like the confination that we live now.
For example, yeah.
It's a long way, but we have to.
Huh?
It's a long way to, but we have to. I think it's more and more necessary, and we can, and more and more people feel this necessity. You know, I think more and more people want to change and realize that our way of life it's impossible, and we are everyday face to this impossible. For me, it's the way of we live that it's become more and more impossible, and I think the connection with not especially spirituality, but with just with other, with the world of others, the body of others, and when I say others, it's people, but it's also trees and animals and water and and I think, and perhaps if I believe in poetry, it's because it's I feel that people need about that, and it can be it's not a solution, you know. Poetry is not a solution, like say Philippe Castelin, but it's a way. It's a little road, and we have all to construct this different little road and parallel road. We need to escape.
Yeah.
We escape from our own bounds.
And with words, just words can change so so many things. You know, what happened in the US? It's with words, and there is body and violence and energy and but people try to talk with each other, and I hope it will be possible. Mm. But how we can talk? It's a problem of poetry. It's how we can talk, how we can. Mm.
Yeah, it's like, you know, the kind of in the silence finally is like the, you know, the if you make like the transposition of poetry or religion and like mystical, you know, like the kind of I don't know, sacred things in the silence, but all are like songs.
Silence. It's possible when there is peace.
Yeah.
But if there is no peace, silence, it's terrible, I think.
Yeah. But do you feel in peace?
Me? No, but if we share peace, we can be together in silence, and we can share silence. But silence can mean also oppression and deny and injustice and etc.
No, also could be like communication with other frequencies. Maybe we can finish later that conversation, Felipe, with a minute of silence. You know, all the minute of silence.
I love it.
Yeah, but not yet. Go, Joachim. Before the silence.
Silence, yes. It's, as you said, it's a way to listen to other frequencies, actually. And this is what meditation is for, because you stop the usual mindset of the thoughts flowing in your brain, and we are all slaves of all that, you know. And as soon as you meditate a little bit, it starts to be interesting, because you're still there and you feel that presence of consciousness, and you know, and you're not the slave of your thoughts, and then you start to, it's very strange, you start to understand things in a very more deep way in silence. And so say, oh, does it work? How does it work? Absolutely fascinating. And I'm not a huge meditative guy. I use sound and music to put myself into kind of meditative state. And poetry is about this, you know, when you read, and reading words, I discovered that, and it's for Julien also. I refused to read words for long years, and when I started to read, that was one of the best time in my life, actually. Really, that was amazing, because I felt even better than doing phonetic and phonemes and words and sounds, and then the back and forth is good. Okay. Because it's about the verbalization, the power of the verb. It's incredible. What is a sound can be a verb, new verbs, and silent verbs.
And about that, Joachim, thank you for that. Incredible object, and excellent edition by Joachim about Movement.
Look, Martin. Martin. Look what happened.
Oh, Martin, as you said, maybe we can end this with a minute of silence. It would be good.
Erratum, like CD or... And yeah, and Erratum label.
Yeah, great.
It's there in that mess. Yeah. And the next one is a very interesting artist from New York, and she's named Charmaine Lee, and she's she's Asiatico-American, but she's American. And then I saw her in New York a few years back, and she just released a tape. And what she's doing is amazing. It's very raw, a mic in the mouth and just kind of sound, and it works fantastically. You know, it's old school, but also this minimal aspect with a young woman was like, okay, I never saw that. It worked, a very analog sound. And so she's working very seriously on her record for the next LP on Eraton for 2 years. And I'm still waiting. It's done. And she's sending me the tracks maybe next week. I'm just like, holy shit, it's going to be good. And then during the 2 years, she started to be famous, actually. She's playing a lot with people, and she wanted the vinyl for June for the PS1 in New York. I was like, what? And then the coronavirus happened. So everything is delayed to September. But then she started, I guess maybe that would be good, because actually I have trouble selling the records. You know, poetry doesn't sell. Sound poetry doesn't sell well, but slowly.
You told me that Raoul Osman was sold out.
Huh?
You've told me that Raoul Osman LP.
No,
was
it's
sold
not.
out.
It's not sold out, but actually it was very quick. The beginning of the sales was like a fire. I never saw that, and then it calms down like instantly. Also with the virus, so I was like, it's like there is like fully passionate people, a very limited amount of very passionate people who just bought it like instantly, and then okay, done. Okay, so I said, no, so the work is back on the tracks. You know, you have to do the work, communication, explain to people who doesn't understand anything about all this. Okay, Raoul Osman was not only this visual guy, you know, la la la.
I've got this one too. It's the first one, I think.
This one, yeah, the first one.
Very important. I liked a lot at this time.
And you know what happened during when I was writing the text for communication on Facebook and everything, when the Raoul Osman came out, I was at my local cafe, and I was completely like making the final research to explain the text and make sure everything was okay. And then I was 2 hours into that, and then some guy entered the bar, and I'm every day there, you know. And I never saw someone doing this. Everybody was like, what? So this guy entered the bar and said to everybody, "Bonjour, je suis Raoul."
It's him.
What the fuck, you know? And I was like behind my computer watching the guy in front of me. I said, what the fuck just happened? You know? This is so weird. And this is it, you know, the spirit. What is consciousness? What is the spirit? How does it work? You know, it's not hazard. It's just something like this happening, and say, okay, this is beautiful. This is poetry.
These times are very Dadaistic.
Yeah.
And the guy behind the bar was like, okay. Okay. Bonjour.
And you don't say, I know him. It's him.
You don't you ever didn't try that possibility to invoke some poets that died from the, you know, William Butler Yeats, the poet. He has a wonderful book. It's called Visions, and in Visions he received how when he has lost his inspiration, he visited William Blake, you know, in his astral travels, and William Blake received him with all his family naked in the garden, and you know, and talk him about Horizon in a way, and then and he introduced himself, William Yeats, how to invoke some, you know, energies, because I don't know, I invoke you, by example, Joachim. When I'm sometime I'm walking in the street and I don't know in Brazil, and sometime I need that kind of it's like a radio, you know, you like a symphony, you know, like I don't know 77869 Joachim Montessuis. And I put in my soul, in my brain and spirit, and I, you know, I think we are like an antennas of that kind of connection. I forget my first meaning, but just because I feel, you know, like you, that kind of when you are making poetry in kind of full energy, and we are like, we have to be the more simple and clear and I don't know, like receptive and transmitting at the same time, and that is, I think that you realize really well. You know, you are receiving things and you are transmitting things, and I'm really happy to understand that you are more far from noise, because I love noise when I have my earbuds, because I feel you like a placenta poet, you know, like a
I'm going to write that down. Placenta poet.
Yeah, this is great.
poet. You know, you're inside your mother womb.
Actually, yes, amniotic. Amniotic is something interesting. I always talked about this also in sound, you know, this kind of deep frequencies, not high tones, but this deep sound like under the sea. And when you hear that, you feel like in the womb, like a baby. And this is, it's like getting back to life itself, you know. And I don't know, there's something there, obviously. But the placenta poet, never thought about it.
We make a tour. Yeah.
We do a duo, placenta poets.
Yeah. Placenta poetry.
Placenta poetry.
Maybe we can finish with 1 minute of silence.
Okay, let's go. Hey, wait for that. Wait a second. I will be the start, okay?
Okay. Master.
Hi.
Go.
Don't see it. Wait.
Yeah.
Putain, mais tu disparais dans l'image là, c'est hyper beau. You disappear on your picture.
Je t'aime.
Bye bye.
Merci pour ce moment.
Merci Joachim.
Ben,
Merci,
merci.
Joachim.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's really great.
Thank you. Yes.
Oui, les amis, hein. We will meet you next Wednesday.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Really interesting. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
I
Bye.
want to have mystical picture also behind me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good night.
It's a picture of my girl.
Wow.
Wow,
She
it's
draws,
beautiful.
she draws that.
Super.
You know, it's a card you
Yeah.
Hmm.
put off
Stretch.
the
Yeah.
yeah, the glass.
Yes, nice.
Hey, nice see you guys.
See you
See you
soon.
soon.
Good night. It was a pleasure.
Oh, you
Bye.
disappear on your letters. Wow.
Bye.
Bye.